Okay, so let's get to some texturing and unwrapping. So for the most part, I'm going to be basically adding a material onto here that I've already created. The type of wood that I want to do is probably this wood frame material, but I might change it to be the same material as the actual chairs themselves. We'll have to figure this out. Now, obviously what we don't want to do is just use this same material, because if we adjust it for the roof frame or we adjust it for any of these items, it's going to change everything else. We want to duplicate that, and I'm going to call this window wood for the moment. And let's have a look at that. Let's zoom in on this a little bit. So we're looking through the camera. So you can see we've got this grain here. Now this wood, we're not going to see the grain that clearly from the direction it is. It's also very shiny. So that's one thing that we can kind of cheat a little bit here. What I do want to do is possibly think about using object mapping for this. So you can see the grain is showing up much better there. We need to rotate this. Now generally if your material is 90 degrees off, you're rotating it in the z-axis by 90 degrees, and that usually gets you what you want. Now we already have the bump and everything set up in here. We have the roughness and everything all done already. Now this wood I want to be a little bit shinier, so I'm going to take that roughness to about 4.5 or 0.45 I should say, and that just creates a nicer little wood there. The issue we have here is now if I grab, for example, this material and we're going to add that window wood in, what we find is the texture doesn't show up, and that's because the wood is basically going in a different direction on this. In fact, you can even see, and let's just make this a lot easier. Let's just go into textured mode here. You can even see the way the texture is shown in here is completely wrong. So let's actually jump back into here for a second. Instead of object mode, let's go back to UV. Let's select this object, and we're just going to very, very quickly unwrap it. So what we want to do is grab somewhere that's never going to be seen. This edge at the bottom is probably a good example. And we want to grab another couple of edges that we're probably unlikely to see. And we want to be able to unwrap this. So I'm going to mark these as seams. I'll go into UV texture so you can see exactly what's going to happen here. At the moment, our UV is basically on this plane. So this infinitely thin plane is our entire UV template. We're going to select all here, we're going to hit U and unwrap that, and now you can see that is unwrapped. I'm going to select all of this, I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And just move this into place. So look out for this little knot here. Let's go into texture mode here and zoom in on our object. And let's have a look. Shading mode. Now we'll have to turn off that 90 degrees. But now if we look at this, we should be able to see that knot pretty clearly on this object. It might actually be on the bottom. Either way, our texture is shown up the way it should be now. You can see in this mode, you can see our grain is running down this way the way it should be. There's that knot that I was talking about there. Now, one thing to point out, see if we go into texture mode here, this isn't taking into account a lot of this mapping. For example, if I change this scale to 1, you can see this doesn't change at all on this, but when I go to texture mode, you can see this is exactly what we've got. If I change that back to 3, it triples that up. So that's one thing to point out. If you're looking at texture mode and workbench or this solid mode, it's not the same as your final render. So always pay attention to that if you can. Work in look dev mode. It's usually more accurate. If you need a better texture to work from, a better HDI to work from, something a little bit more close to what you're actually going to be finally using, there are a few options there. This is the one I'll use for the moment because it is a bright interior scene. Okay, so that's what we've got there. So let's grab this piece of wood here. So I'm going to add on this window wood material. And now I'm going to unwrap this material. So if I go to edit mode, isolate this, going to select this top face and this face. Actually, no, we're not going to select those. We're going to select some edges here. We're going to unwrap this just like a box, just like we did with this other one again. Select all. And this is probably something you're already aware of if you've used any kind of program for any amount of time. 3D program that is. When you go to texture, let's take this, let's select that all and rotate that 90 degrees so our grain is running up and down this. And we look at our material. You can see our material is now working, but the scale of this is a lot different. If we take our first object here, and we'll take our second object and go to object mode and select all and overlap those textures, what you can see is this small piece of wood is taking up a much larger area on our UV map than the large piece of wood. So because of that, the texture actually looks bigger here than it does here. One simple way of fixing this is you can actually average the island scales to average that out. And now those textures actually match per scale. This is very important if you've got a very small item next to a large item that has the same texture. You want the textures to actually match. So that's a really, really quick way of doing that. And now in Blender, since you can select two objects and be in object mode, you don't have to have these as the same object in order to average those island scales. So that's just a really quick tip for you. So I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time in this video going through and unwrapping and texture and everything. I mean, for one reason, it's just kind of boring watching the same monotonous thing over and over again. Texturing things, unwrapping things. Let's do that wood vert on this material. Let's do another unwrap on it. And incidentally, another thing you can do if you're really just a bit lazy, Smart UV Project, usually pretty good for getting a decent unwrap going on an object. Let's see. Need to make sure we have this selected. We are using the same material there, wood vert. Incidentally, this material actually has a little bit of distortion on the UVs, just to make the grain of this just wiggle ever slightly. It was pretty straight in the original one. The window wood material actually looks pretty good here, but in this, I mean, this looks pretty bad. Again, one thing that might show up here is if we go into all transforms and things like that, you can see this texture is not the same texture we have on that other material. So this is window wood. This is window wood. We did a different one there, wood vert, so let's change that back to window wood. So that was just a little mistake there. What I do want to do on this particular one is copy it. Window wood vert. And I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees so the grain is running up and down. And you can see that doesn't actually affect these other ones. So we're going to have one texture for some of these materials and one texture for some of the other ones. Again, what I can do now, since I have this one piece done, if I wanted to, I could start duplicating this across. And I'm basically just going to go through a bunch of these materials and get all the wood unwrapped. Get all the textures going correctly, make sure all the normals are pointing the right way as well. And you can rejoin me in a moment and I'll show you the result. Okay, so I thought I'd just show you a little bit of the process that I'm going through here, because I'm doing a little bit more than actually just texturing and unwrapping things. I'm actually making some adjustments to some of these. Because I have these pieces blocked in, I also decided to make a couple of edge loops and cut out some parts of some of these objects, just so that when I bevel the edges, I have this clear indication of a gap between these objects, which will just really help in kind of solidifying the reality of this actual object itself. So that's always something you want to try and take into account as well, how things fit together. It's not always necessary, but it's one thing to maybe spend a little bit of time on. again, I'm just going through and unwrapping things, and the process I'm using here is essentially what I kind of showed you before. Is applying a material to it, going in, basically just grabbing an edge that's never going to be seen, grabbing whichever edges I require in order to unwrap this, and just basically unwrapping it, essentially, or marking seams I should say, and then unwrapping it. If the material happens to come in and it's in the wrong direction, I can either rotate it here, or I can just add the vertical version of it and go back here, and you can see that's now in place. And it's just essentially repeating this same thing over and over and over and over again. Now in some situations like this, what I can do is I can delete this, I can duplicate this object, rotate it 90 degrees, and Y, G, move this in X, get it into position. Just try and find where this actually fits in, leave this minute little gap here, and in this case we're going to move this up, and we're just going to make a couple of little adjustments to this. I want to move this in Y. I'm just going to make sure these, the grain doesn't match up exactly. And because I only need some of this for this part here, I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to go to edge loop. I'm going to put in an edge loop. I'm going to put it in just a little bit lower than I need it. Get an edge loop, put it a little bit higher than I need it. Again, another edge loop just in here. Another edge loop. Let's see, we need an edge loop just in here. And now what I can just do is I can just go in and delete everything I don't need, which is essentially everything apart from these two faces. So I can just invert, hit X, delete faces, go back in there. Now I just have this flat plane. Now, because Eevee can have some issues with contact shadows and things like that when you use flat planes, I'm just going to just simply extrude this back just a little bit. Now you can see because I've extruded that back, that has actually flipped the normals. So that's one thing to watch out for here. So I just have to select all, hit mesh, normals, flip, and that fixes those. That's one little thing to watch out for when you extrude something back the way from its original orientation. Basically a negative extrude, and that basically fixes that. And yeah, that's really the process I'm using all the way around here, get everything into place. There's not really much hassle in this. I'm going to delete this object because this object should fit basically right in there. So again, I'm just going to Shift D, duplicate, G, move this up, and put this in. So where this fits in, these parts already line up with all the areas. One thing I do need to do is maybe just add a little seam in here for this part. Now this one here, what I can do is actually just delete this, and let's just copy this across. So I'm just going to do Shift D again and just move this back over. Now this is one thing to watch out for. If I go to edit mode and I decide I want this face to be a little bit shorter, take that to here, and maybe even grab this. Not entirely necessary, but let's say I want this a little bit lower. And I go into this now. A little bit hard to tell here, but I'll have stretched this UV if I select all this. You can see this is actually the same shape as it was before. So now I just have to hit U and unwrap that, and that fixes that. Now, as I said before, the scale of all of these is all going to be wrong. So let's just, let's select this, delete this. We're going to duplicate this, Move this out in X. I'm going to go to edit mode. Just to prove another point, I'm just going to select all. I'm going to scale this a little bit here. And let's come back off there. And hopefully you can tell that this texture is all skewed. Now what I'm going to do is, once we've got all the main parts that we want in and textured, and for now I'm just going to do these ones. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to go through and select each one of these objects in turn. Just want to make sure I do get them all. Yeah, I think that is every single one of them. And again, what I'm going to do is go to edit mode, select all. We are going to go to UVs. We're going to average island scale. Oh, we have to make sure everything's selected. Okay, now all our textures should be the exact right scale. We can go through and see the grain is the exact right size on all of them. Our textures are all running the correct direction. Let's go into our camera view. Actually, let's go to our layout view. Texture view, camera view. And now we should have what basically looks pretty close to the reference image, I would say. Let's have a look, see if we can actually find that reference image. So yeah, not terrible. You can see we've got our nice little reflections there and there. Obviously we still need to add in some more geometry in there, but this part is basically all textured. It's been done in such a way that we can take quite a lot of this, duplicate it around the scene, cut things off, re-unwrap it, add in edge loops and things like that, and just fill in the rest of this gap. So that's just something I just wanted to quickly show you there. And I guess that's the end of another video for today.